1997 year in review continues with WWF Ground Zero in your house. Not in your house, Ground Zero in your house. Because now, in your house is no longer the main title. It's also the first 3 hour in your house. It's also the first pay per view of Michael Cole. It's the pay per view debut of D Generation X. It's the pay per view debut of the Patriot. It's the last in your house with, the typical door, garage, siding, uh, windows, and houseplant set. You know the set. Um, it's it's like I said, there's a lot of firsts, a lot of lasts here. So the build-up, and it's also the last pay-per-view of Brian Pillman, unfortunately. So the build-up, we have a show called Friday Night Main Event, which we got to talk about because back in the day, Raw was preempted with dog shows on the USA Network. You had earlier in the year, as I said, Thursday Raw Thursday, which is stupid, named stupid. And then you have Friday Night Main Event, which is not Saturday night's main event, unfortunately. It's Friday night's main event, which is not on the network. So I had to track these shows down, and they only lasted 2 weeks. Both shows averaged a 1.5 Nielsen rating, which was pretty shit. So it obviously didn't draw very well, didn't do very well. On that show, on one of the shows, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels interfered in a match between Undertaker and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And on the September 5 show, Patriot defeated Owen Hart in a match. We also had the debut of D Generation X in the build-up on August 11th in Biloxi, Mississippi, on a very memorable episode of Raw is War. Very cool. So, Patriot's the number one contender for the WWF title, and one of the most unlikely challengers for the WWF title. All right, Brian Pillman defeats Goldust, and the stipulation is if Goldust loses, he loses Marlena for 30 days, which unfortunately this storyline ends because, Brian Pillman dies. And so this doesn't end at all. We do get the Brian Pillman's Triple X Files. And this whole buildup is because they talk about the love child of Brian Pillman, which Goldust is raising. That's Dakota, who is 3-year-old daughter. His 3-year-old daughter is Brian Pillman's. Yes, you remember Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, who were fighting over the custody of Dominic in one of the stupidest match stipulations I've ever seen? Well, imagine that, but fortunately, they're not fighting over the custody of Dakota. This is not a ladder match for the custody papers of Dakota. This is a decent match, 5 out of 10. It's the last pay-per-view match of Brian Pillman. We would not see the end of this rivalry, so we don't know what would have been the finale, what would have been the ending game of this. We have some ideas how Goldust was supposed to be handcuffed to a bottom rope. He was supposed to be handcuffed in a match. He was supposed to be handcuffed during the match between Pillman and Doolove at Bad Blood. Of course, that doesn't happen. Anyways, 5 out of 10. Next up, Brian Christopher, Jerry Lawler's son, and they play it off like it's not his son, but they play it off as it is his son. So, whatever. Defeating Scott Putski. If you know who Scott Putski is, well, then you're a bigger wrestling fan than I am, because I have no idea. They even say he is the son of Ivan Putski, who's in the Hall of Fame. This match is shit. It ends very abruptly when Scott Putski gets an injury during the match, during a cross-body encounter. So they do an outside cross-body. Scott Putski gets injured, and so it ends in a count-out. The match gets tossed out. This match is shit, a 0. Just let me tell you something about their light heavyweight division. Okay? You had WCW's Cruiserweight division up here. You have SmackDown's Cruiserweight division here. The new Raw Cruiserweight division down here. And then way at the fucking bottom, you have this division. You have the light heavyweight division of the WWF, where you have Gilbert in 1999, the light heavyweight champion throughout. He is the light heavyweight, the longest light heavyweight champion. It's Gilbert. Fucking funny as hell. Again, WCW Cruiserweight division here, WWF Light Heavyweight division. They're equivalent, and I use that word very loosely, clear down at the bottom. Very, very bad. Then we had the first ever triple threat match on pay-per-view, which is incredible to think about. So what do you think was the very first triple threat match in pay-per-view history? Was it Undertaker versus Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels? Was it, say, Triple H, The Rock, and Steve Austin? Was it, or hell, maybe you can go further back. Maybe it be Macho Man versus Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan? No, silly child. The first ever pay-per-view triple threat match was the leader of the Los Boricuas in Savio Vega, the leader of the DOA in Crush, and the leader of the Nation of Domination in Farouk. And this was a very bad match. A 3 out of 10. Actually, a 2 out of 10. This match was shit. It was all over the place. Obviously, triple threat matches got a lot better, and you know what? I will give it a 3. Because, I'll be fair, it was the first triple threat match, and I guess these guys they probably just didn't realize they probably just didn't know how to work a triple threat match properly. Whatever. I don't know. Who am I to critique professional wrestlers? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a mark. Anyways, 3 out of 10. Max Mini defeats El Torito. No, not that El Torito. The bull from the Los Matadors. No, a different El Torito. During this time period, they did have a midget division, I suppose. They would have midget matches or little. Yeah, they're called midgets in the business. They did have a midget division for some midget division. Say that a lot. And their midget division was fine. They had mini Goldust and mini Vader and mini Mankind and so on and so forth. Max Mini was probably their midget division star. Honestly, I guess maybe they were way too small for the light heavyweights, but these I'm gonna say this actually. These midgets were better than the light heavyweights. I'm dead serious. Minus the great Suzuki, who wasn't even in the WWF that long anyways. A 5 out of 10. Next up, we have a fatal 4-way tag team 4 corners match for the vacated tag team titles. Why is the tag team titles vacated? Well, Dude Love and Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Hart Foundation members Owen Hart and British Bulldog for said tag team titles on an episode Raw is War. They were stripped of their titles because Steve Austin just doesn't want to be in a tag team, period. So that leads to this match. The Headbangers wins this match. Road Warriors or Legion of Doom, rather, is eliminated first. Godwin's eliminated second, and then Bulldog and Owen Hart, they get eliminated last as Mosh gets a victory over Owen Hart after Stone Cold interferes and gets a stunner in on Owen Hart. So even though Steve Austin still is dealing with a broken neck, you wouldn't really realize it because here he is interfering in matches all over the place. A 5 out of 10. Also during the midst of this show, Steve Austin stuns Jim Ross, and Jim Ross reacts to it very hilariously. Like, I know he's popular, but he can't be stunning non-wrestlers. This is bullshit, and if you don't do anything about this, gorilla, you're not going to see me very much. So whatever. 5 out of 10. Next up, we have Bret Hart defeating the Patriot, because of course he was going to defeat him, for the World Wrestling Federation title. And this is one of the most, I would say the Patriot is one of the least likeliest people to win the WWE title ever. Now, I would have said Jinder Mahal in his match against Randy Orton, but he actually won the title. So when you think of people who there is absolutely no way in hell they're going to win the title, and obviously they don't ultimately win the title, you think of guys like the Patriots in this match. He is the epitome of this. The other guy I would say would be Hardcore Holly, as there was no way in hell Hardcore was going to beat Brock Lesnar at Warrior Rumble in 2004. There was no way the 1-2-3 Kid was going to beat Bret Hart at Raw in July '94. There was no way John Cena was going to beat Brock Lesnar at Backlash 2003. So on and so forth. There was no way Vladimir Kozlov was going to beat Triple H at Survivor Series '08. There was no way in hell Mike Knox was going to win the Elimination Chamber match and win the World Heavyweight title. So, just like all those guys, of course, the Patriot, of course, he wasn't going to win because no one really bought into him because he has a generic as fuck gimmick as patriotism. Very, very. I hate the patriotism gimmick so bad because everyone could really do it. What makes the Patriot more patriotic than a Shawn Michaels? Or hell, actually, you want to talk about patriotism? Who defines all the red, white, and blue? Who defines America? Who represents America more so at this time period than Stone Cold Steve Austin? You know, the blue collar, the rattlesnake, who takes no, who represents Americans more than Stone Cold Steve Austin. A guy who got his neck broken and who is facing that if he can no longer compete. So he has to do all this stuff to make sure he still gets paid so that he still is making a living, even though he has a broken neck. Who represents America more than Stone Cold? So the Patriot, fucking stupid. I hate the USA fucking gimmick so bad. Bret Hart does the anti-American gimmick so well, as he and Sergeant Slaughter and a couple other anti-Americans, they do that gimmick very, very well. They do the anti-America gimmick very, very well. This match is okay, 6 out of 10, but there was no way in hell Patriot was going to win. No one bought into him anyways. He has a generic as fuck gimmick, and he doesn't last long. I don't remember seeing him into 1998. Patriot in 1998 into the Attitude Era would have been very, very shitty. Again, as I said, who represents America more? Some guy named Del Wilkes, who is only patriotic because he's hoisting the American flag and he has an eagle on his fucking mask and he wears red, white, and blue. Oh, because he is wearing because he is swinging Old Glory, he's patriotic. Him, who would you rather have? The Patriot or Stone Cold Steve Austin? Who represents America more so? Steve Austin doesn't need to wear red, white, and blue and carry an Old Glory to represent America, to represent the Americans. So, as you can tell, fuck the Patriot. And fuck the patriotic gimmick. 6 out of 10. Next up, we have the main event. Match of the night by far. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. And they go to a no contest. I find it completely insanity that these two guys, they represent so many generations. They represent the new generation and the Attitude Era. Undertaker more so. They represent the Ruthless Aggression. They represent so many generations. They represent young fans and newer fans and older fans and women and older wrestling fans and so on and so forth. They represent so many generations of wrestling fans through the 90s, through the 2000s, and even through the 2010s. And, they will continue to do so. But I find it completely insanity that this is their very first one-on-one encounter, or one-on-one match, I should say. This is their first official one-on-one match. It took them 7 years to do a one-on-one match. And then once when Shawn Michaels gets injured, he comes back. And it's funny as hell that when Shawn Michaels comes back in 2002, it takes another 7 years for them to have yet another one-on-one match. And Royal Rumble 2007 finals does not count. So it took them 7 years. It took them 7 years to get their first match, and it took another 7 years after the fact when Shawn Michaels comes back to get another one-on-one match. These guys had great matches all the time. Unfortunately, when you talk about the matches they do have, they only have 5 matches together one-on-one. This is obviously the least memorable of the 5. However, there's still some great moments in here. Referees get knocked out like crazy. Triple H gets involved. Rick Rude gets involved. Rick Rude throws in a pair of brass knucks and hits out The Undertaker. We do get to see all these guys come out, and it's fucking funny to see the Sultan and Rocky Maivia, who is injured at this point, or actually just came back, rather. So you have all that going down, and then so you have the DOA, you have LOD, you have all these guys, Rocky Maivia, trying to hold Shawn Michaels and Undertaker back, and then Undertaker, who's in the ring, Shawn Michaels, who is outside of the ring with Triple H. Undertaker does the Undertaker dive, and it's such a beautiful shot. This is actually, I believe, the very first time we see an Undertaker dive. And it's just fucking awesome. So, yeah, an awesome way to end. 8 out of 10. An awesome way to end. But it's a very, very mediocre show. A 4.5 overall. And I'll catch you next time. I'm going to do a bonus episode, a bonus review for you. Since I already reviewed Canadian Stampede, instead of doing a Raw is War, and I was thinking about doing the Raw is War from Madison Square Garden, probably the best episode of Raw ever. However, I decided to do instead the UK exclusive pay-per-view, WWF One Night Only. So, coming up next on 1997 Year in Review, it will be WWF One Night Only. For WCW, it's Halloween Havoc. So I'll catch you next time. I'm Daniel Rock 08. You're not. Goodbye. Goodbye.